Well, good evening. It's your buddy Ryan here, coming out to the greenhouse on the Moondance homestead. Let's have us a quick listen to the frogs. That's how you can tell spring has sprung, and we've had a lot of rain here. I hope you can hear it through the microphone. It's been so wet and rainy here in California. We live in the dry mountains, so that's a real treat to hear them so loud this year. But we're going to do a quick little greenhouse tour. Hope you enjoyed that bonus frog content. And I'm going to take, we've got this spring. I saw I keep the door shut. Look at this. Very sophisticated. So, we are out in the greenhouse on the Moondance homestead here. I'm going to show you some of the stuff I have going and kind of talk to you about it. I've already brought a bunch of stuff out for kind of my cool weather crops. I started some kale and collards and things like that indoors a bit early, even though it's, generally I would seed directly with those kinds of things. But this year I decided to start them in my greenhouse just because I have a brand new greenhouse that I just finished building. And, I was just kind of eager to use it for something. And also we have a lot of ants and earwigs here, so it's sometimes kind of helpful to start things indoors first and let them get strong so they have a chance to bounce back when they inevitably get nibbled on. But anyway, things are starting to get bigger out here. If you saw my previous video detailing what I've got, you notice everything's getting kind of large and in charge at this point. But right here we have the sweetie tomato. This is from seed I saved in 2021. So it's very nice and acclimatized to this property. And we have tomatillo here. This is a San Marzano tomato. It's my favorite paste tomato. The only thing that I don't care for about it is it does have a tendency to get blight. So it's really helpful to prune it well and trellis it and keep it off the ground as much as possible, keep leaves from touching the ground, and obviously adding a bunch of calcium to your soil, maybe in the form of eggshells that'll break down over time, or oyster shell, really helps prevent that blight. And then it's a really great producer, and I get tons and tons of tomatoes from the San Marzano, but you do have to be aware of the blight. More tomatillo, another tomatillo. You can see these are all started from seed. It's from the same packet. There's another tomatillo over here. They've all had the exact same light conditions. I'm rotating these plants, but they all look totally different. So that's kind of the neat thing about growing from seed, is you get a lot of variation. You get your tomatoes from the grocery store parking lot. Those are all going to be clones. They're genetically identical. So, each variety is genetically identical to the other plants of that variety. So all the early girls are clones, effectively. So when you grow from seed, you get a lot more variety, is the point. We got yellow pear tomato here. It's my first year growing that. I hope it does well. It looks very healthy. Another one of my sweetie tomatoes from my saved seed. Yellow pear tomato, San Marzano, again down there. Over here we have some of my peppers. I really like to just grow like open pollinated, save seeds, and go for it. So variety mix packs are what I grow a lot of my peppers from. So this is a random salsa pepper, a couple salsa peppers over here. These are actually peri-peri peppers. You can see those. I want to say 2 of them in here. And, oh no, here's another one. Those are some seeds I saved that grew here last year. You might also know it as the bird's eye pepper. It's an African variety. Has a very unique flavor. It grows well here in Tehachapi, so I've decided it's on my list of keepers. Over here, we have ground cherries, you may be asking yourself, what on earth is a ground cherry? It looks like a tomatillo. It grows with a little husk. It tastes like somewhere between passion fruit and mango. And it looks like a little yellow tomatillo. They're absolutely delicious. If you do have the opportunity to grow them, they're great because you get fruit from it in a single season, whereas things like strawberries or starting an apple tree or a peach tree, you're going to have to wait a few years. So these are a good quick way to get a heavy harvest of fruit. I love them. And speaking of that variability I was telling you about, this is another ground cherry that I planted at the same time. We'll just do a little comparison in size. This is the amount of variability you get growing from seed. These were all planted on the same day, within minutes of each other, under the same grow light and just about the same spot. The conditions have been identical. So this one is just going absolutely bananas. So this will be the one I save seeds from this year, as long as it fruits out nicely. Coming on down the line here, I have some elephant grass. This is something I'm trying to introduce on my property. I'm going to be growing it for animal fodder as well as for fuel. We're getting a pelletizing machine once this is grown out. So we'll press it into pellets and use it in our pellet stove, as well as you can use those pellets to feed the rabbits. So I'm getting started producing my own feed for my animals here. We also have some Murasaki sweet potato starts that I'm working on. These are really easy to start. There's lots of videos on YouTube on how to do this, but I used a sweet potato from the grocery store. So, about $2-3 to start all these slips, and I have a ton more that I can grow out. Here we have mint. I really like mint. I'm establishing a mint patch around a tree in my front yard. And hopefully we'll get a lot of tea. We'll also probably end up feeding a lot of the local rabbits, which is fine with me. I can also feed my rabbits with it. If you're seeing a theme here, there's a lot of things I can feed to rabbits, including sweet potato leaves. They're really good for bunnies. So I'm trying to feed me and feed my animals, which also feed me. It all feeds back into itself. We have thyme coming in here. Everything is really nicely adjusting from growing from under grow lights to coming out here. Nothing has died back in that transition. We have oregano. That one's really nice. These guys are coming in too. These guys are struggling, but they're coming along. I started them out here. And this one too. Over here we have sage, several sage plants. And my favorite thing to grow in the garden recently is New Zealand spinach. I actually am growing these from seeds I saved myself last year. So it's going to be, again, nicely adapted to growing in our environment. We're in a pretty weird little microclimate here in Tehachapi, California. Lots of harsh, unpredictable weather changes, high winds, sometimes very, very dry. So it's great that this grows here. It's a heat-loving variety of leaf. It does really well in salty soils, which I do have in 2 of my beds that the previous owners watered with a lot of softened water and really made it salty. So I've been using these to grow and harvest, and some of the salt comes out with it. So over time, we're lowering the salt content of the soil. It's called phytoremediation. But yeah, I have 4 of these. They grow huge, and it tastes like spinach when you cook it, almost exactly, except it really loves the heat of summer. So when your standard spinach crop is just starting to die out, this stuff is going to start thriving, and you can harvest it every single day, and it'll grow back just as fast as you can harvest it. Let's see here. This is just some miner's lettuce. Enough said about that. It's really good. Lemon balm. I am also establishing that in the mint patch. I'm going to let them grow together. I've had a lot of success intermingling them before in the past, even though the mint does eventually win. Over here, I have oca and uluco. Those are both Andean tubers. You can see one, I guess it's aca. One aca plant is sprouting up. It looks a lot like a potato sprout. So hopefully that'll form some leaves here soon. Hopefully it's not a root sticking up. I've never grown it before. Last things I have down here, just waiting for some ginger and some more aca to pop up in these. But we have comfrey down here. Of course, you guys have seen in my previous videos, I do have a half-acre orchard here, just a family orchard. I think we're up to about 17, 18 fruit trees at this point. So I'm starting these out there because when we first got the property, the hill's incredibly sandy. I've spent the past few years getting just anything at all to grow there, and now it's become kind of a really nice grassy hill with some variety of native grasses and some fruit bushes and fruit trees. But this stuff is going to be planted in that soil. Reason being is that comfrey puts its roots really deep into the soil, and since it is a hill, it is prone to erosion. This stuff is really good to help with erosion, but what it'll also do is it pulls minerals from the soil, and since the soil here is very rocky and quite sandy, at least it started out that way, this stuff is going to help mine some minerals from the soil, pull them to the surface, and we can use them in our compost or just cut and drop them, a little chop and drop at the base of my fruit trees. So I'm going to plant one of these next to each of my fruit trees about a foot away, and then I'll just be able to chop and drop right there anytime I want to fertilize one of my fruit trees. And this stuff's real easy to propagate too, so I have a whole bunch there. What I'm eventually going to do is I'm going to commingle the elephant grass and the comfrey out in my field. And I think together, those along with a bush I have found called Tagasasti, which is a nitrogen fixer, the three of those in a mixed stand, I predict, will help me to accrue some incredible biomass out in the field that I can use for animal fodder or just enriching the soil as well. And eventually I'd like to use the elephant grass, comfrey, and Tagasasti to feed all of my rabbits year-round, as well as feeding some milking goats we may eventually get once we get to that point. But because we are sort of a very eco-friendly homestead here, I didn't want to start raising goats until I was certain I could, produce everything that they need to eat. So anyway, if you've watched this far, thank you so much for joining tonight. Last thing I'll show you is just the temperature. I'm sitting out here. It's pretty chilly tonight, but it's 61.5 degrees out here in the greenhouse. 69% humidity. My heat sink barrels are doing their job. I can touch it. It feels just slightly warm to the touch. So, really happy with all this, and I'm getting excited to move it out into the garden. Happy gardening, guys.